We're here today with C.J. Metcalf, who's seeking re-election to the Springfield Park Board in the April 2nd election. We appreciate you being here today, C.J., and invite you to provide an opening statement about why you're seeking re-election to this office.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to kind of explain and go over my vision, both over the last 4 years and hopefully moving forward if given the honor to serve again on the board. A little bit about myself first. I'm currently a trustee running for re-election. I'm professionally, I work for the Department of Insurance as the head of our Division of Innovation and Market Analysis. I've been with the department about 20 years, married to my wife Jenny about 20 years as well. She works for the State Board of Education in their preschool. She's a consultant in their preschool program. We have 2 boys who are very active in Park District related activities and theater here as well. So that's kind of what helped initially to get me interested and keeps me interested and invested in the Park District and the related activities. We use the facilities, so I feel like we have a vested interest like many other folks in the community. I'm a hockey coach. My youngest son plays hockey, so spend lots of time out at the Nelson Center. And I feel that we've done a lot of good things the last 4 years as a board. I don't take sole credit because it truly is a board, and I've enjoyed my time. I see it as a labor of love, and I'd like to have the opportunity to do additional things to improve the district for the next 4 years.
Let's talk about that first term. What's been a surprise? What's been a challenge?
I think I prefer professionally. It was a challenge. I try to stay away from challenges. I call them opportunities.
Okay, very
and
good.
so yeah, but I think and there are many of those. But I think that we're very blessed in the Springfield community to have such a broad and diverse district, which I think is tremendous and awesome. But with that, it's also kind of wrapping your mind around those different opportunities and doing your homework and learning about, because every activity, every program has a constituency who is very passionate about that. And I think that's great, and they bring that energy and vibrancy to the board with their issues that they want us to discuss and address. And I think that really helps kind of fuel the fire. I think as a trustee that, man, these things that we're doing and considering are really having an impact in the community, and people like those and appreciate those. And when there are concerns or maybe minor hiccups or whatever, that we can have an impact on addressing those and making those programs. If we need to recalibrate and tweak things to help the users, the patrons, that we can do that and affect that change. So I think that's been sometimes both a challenge, but that helps fuel a passion to do those sorts of things.
Is there a particular vote or an issue or difficulty that you had around an issue during this time?
And I think, and I kind of knew being around, just public policy and, I've done some work with the state capitals. I kind of knew that with Park District, a lot of your votes are going to be pretty agreeable. There's obviously no partisan way to do things in the Park District. So we tend to get along as a board, and so there's very few votes where there's any kind of dissension. If at all, maybe disagreement on a few things. There was one dealing with, it was basically trying to recover some property taxes. There was an issue in trying to recoup some issues, and it would raise property taxes by a certain percentage on assessed value. And it's one of the issues I'm kind of concerned with. I think we're good stewards of the money that folks give us. I think we're actually about 6% of the overall tax bill that folks receive goes to the Park District. So I think we're very good stewards of that. But the bill would have allowed us to assess even more on that. And that was one that was myself and one other trustee that ultimately decided to vote against that. And I totally understand the other side that voted in favor of it. But that was probably one of the few where there was a little bit of disagreement, I guess, amongst the board. And it's respectful. We get along, but sometimes from a public policy perspective, you disagree. And like I said, you'd always like to have more as a public entity, but sometimes too, I think there's maybe other ways to try to go about doing that. And that's one of the issues I think that I've experienced in the last 4 years that kind of had a little bit more drama, shall we say, perhaps, than most of the issues that we deal with. Because for the most part, that's very important. But a lot of what we do is fun. But sometimes you've got to get in the weeds, and that's one that kind of sticks out to me.
You talked about how diverse the park district is in terms of what it offers. I was on the website and found some statistics. It oversees 35 parks, 23 miles of bike trails, 4 golf courses, the zoo, the Nelson Center, offers a variety of educational, recreational programs, classes, partners to offer athletics. What do you think the average Springfield resident doesn't understand about the park district that you wish they did?
I think to me, I would say it probably, and I think the staff has worked towards doing a better job. We do the insert in the Illinois Times that's very comprehensive, but you can get lost in that, which I think is great in that it shows all the different offerings that we have available. But sometimes it's hard, particularly if you're new to a certain program, to kind of figure out, well, how do I get involved in that? And I think it's just, folks, I know with the zoo per se, a lot of folks don't understand the zoo as part of the park district. So I think it's just letting people know that, hey, we have all these programs. I think it's over 400 plus programs for from preschool to special rec to elderly activities, just the whole spectrum. So I think it's just. And what I've learned with the park district is you can make it what you want. You can learn as much or as little as you want about it, or find your niche, or be more of a generalist with it. But you really have to kind of do that deep dive to figure out, this is maybe something I'm interested in, because I guarantee you, people go and look, you'll find something that, and if not, let me know and we'll work on it. So I think that would be kind of my 2 cents on that topic.
Okay. In other communities, the parks fall under the purview of the municipality. That was the way it used to be here, too, as well. Since you're running for re-election for a seat in the park board, I'm going to assume you believe the district should be separate from the city. So talk to us about why you think the current arrangement makes the most sense for residents of Springfield.
Yeah, a couple things. We actually have the second oldest park district in Illinois from 1900, and I think it goes, threefold. I think the city was originally in the rec department, and the department or the district took over those activities not that long ago. And so we had to work on kind of renovating some of those facilities. So I think a portion of it has been tried, and to see that the city wanted to get away from that. At another time, the city has, like all public bodies, its own funding issues, and there's finite amount of resources to go around. And I think from my experiences and talking with folks in general, that obviously maybe some of the park district related activities would receive short shrift if put in that same bucket. And like I said, I think we receive just under 6% of the overall tax bill, and I think for what we provide and the services that we offer folks for that amount, that it's a pretty good return. And I feel that I'm confident saying that if you ask the general public, that they're happy with, always room for improvements, but for what the bucket that we have, that we give people a good return for that amount. And I think we have had some of the recreation aspects under the city before, and we've transitioned away from that. So I would not be in favor of doing that again. And I think there's there's kind of empirical evidence that it's been there, and it was something that perhaps wouldn't be prudent to go back to again.
How would you describe the relationship between the city and the park district?
I think generally, I think we have a cordial working relationship like any governmental bodies. There's obviously some of those push and pull that you'll have between two autonomous bodies. I think if there's places where we can naturally build synergies, do some partnerships. So we do that with the police, our police force, and the cities where they can help with some calls, and we do the same. So there's some intergovernmental agreements there. I think those things are beneficial and in favor of, and that speaks not only with the city of Springfield, but with some of the other surrounding villages and municipalities as well. So overall, I think it's cordial, and like I said, just general. Every once in a while, there's an issue that where we may butt heads, but at the end of the day, everybody gets together and works towards a consensus that's best for both bodies and the citizens involved.
You brought up the police district, the police force. Do you believe the Park District needs its own police force?
It was interesting. Kind of the first big issue when I was getting ready to come on the board, and it was they were trying to decide what to do because there had been some issues that were dealt with just prior to me coming on the board with leadership of the department, and it was a learning experience for me. We had the Association of Chiefs of Police did a study for us. We kind of gained out some different scenarios, some offerings, and I didn't have any preset ideas going into where I kind of thought, what we should do on it. And so seeing the study and the research and talking with folks, we ultimately decided to keep the police department. We have Limey, Chief Narchelinas, who's done an amazing job. He has very good connections and resources throughout the law enforcement community in the area. And so I think currently we've got roughly 4 full-time and 11 part-time that have come from the whole spectrum: U.S. Marshals, retired state police, the city of Springfield. And so he's done a very good job of bringing a professionalization to the department. He undertook the it's a very heavy lift of redoing all the codes, rewrote all those recently that hadn't been done in, don't quote me on it, but I would say in excess of 30 years. So he did that. He's done yeoman's work on that. So I think it's done a tremendous job from where it was approximately 4 years ago to today. They also does a lot of good work with different kind of charity, getting the department out there too to show, hey, we're not just here to be a supposed heavy hand perhaps, but they're really invested in the community and have done a tremendous job.
Okay.
So what's the future of that? Were there suggestions in the study that would kind of forecast the way it should look?
And that's kind of the model that we've gone towards, because we looked at some of the other municipalities. We have Peoria. I also talked to the city, to the county, and obviously they had their own constraints too. And so we thought, here's a model where we can have, because the struggle that we had as an agency is we would train new folks, and then obviously they would go elsewhere to get higher salaries. So what we thought is that, okay, we'll have a chief, we've got an assistant chief, a couple other full-time, and then supplement that, especially during the heavy season, the summer season, with retired professionals that have already received their training and can hit the ground running from day one that they joined the force. And it's been a good model, it's been successful, and it's really stabilized the department over the 4 years during my tenure. So I think it's been night and day from what I've seen just prior to coming to the board, getting on the board, and to today.
Let's talk about the budget. Get the budget every year.
Yep.
How have you, as a board member, how have you approached that annual budget process? Like, what priorities or principles guide you?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, you try to, it can, we're roughly, 17 plus million is kind of our universe. So you just kind of see every year what that pie is, and see if there's any variations from one year to the next. If maybe there's some places we need to tweak or recalibrate, and kind of look at those and see based upon what we hear from groups or new priorities, that sort of thing, and then see if that's something that we need to kind of shift maybe some more resources here or there. Have that discussion during the meetings, because I would say since I've been on the board, we had, let's say, take tennis. We had a lot of tennis courts in the past. We take, funds to repurpose those. And a lot of times we'll get donations and help from user groups, but repurpose tennis courts to pickleball is another big one. And we also did that out at Nelson Center at the tennis courts there. We had somebody who wanted to do deck hockey, which is basically hockey on foot. So we repurposed the tennis courts there for deck hockey. So I think it's just kind of being cognizant that this is our pie, and are certain things you can from one year to the next. Folks are like those, we're comfortable with those, and then you take those and kind of put them to the side, and then see what else you can do on other areas if you need to move things around, or something has gotten short shrift in the past that maybe now needs some attention, needs some TLC. And I think that's kind of what we've seen in the past. Maybe it was the Nelson Center. I think the zoo is another example that it really needs some TLC. And I think in the past, 5+ years ago or more, the district was having problems meeting payroll. I think, and now we're at a position in the last 5 years, we've increased our fund balances by almost $5 million. So we're in a much better shape now than we were 5 years ago, which allows us a little bit of flexibility, which is great. But with that, we also have to there's a reason why we're in that position, which comes from, both hard choices this board that I'm on now has made and previous boards. And so it's put us in a pretty good spot. Obviously, we'd like to be in a better spot, but, being cognizant of, hey, how did we get to this point, and that we have a little bit of flexibility. A big part of it has been our work comp costs. We've cut substantially through programs and just making that a big issue amongst the staff. Our workers out there every day in the parks have done a really good job to make sure let's be safe. Let's pay attention to these sorts of things, and that's really had a tremendous impact on our bottom line. So those sorts of things really help, and have made it. I know it's much from what I've heard. It's a much better time to be on the board now than previous boards because of some of the tough decisions that were made and that continue to be made, while also providing, I think, a service that folks understand is very broad, diverse, and that folks enjoy. So that's always the balance that we as a board have. Like, we want to have these tremendous offerings and want folks to feel like they're listened to and have something that they can participate in and be passionate about, but also realizing, hey, we have a bottom line too. And that's a delicate dance as a board member that you always have to be cognizant of.
So we can talk for a minute about all of the facilities, and Kate listed 35 parks, I think. So is that too many, too few, about the same number, about right?
I think we're in a good spot. Myself, am I an advocate of more parks at this point? I would say no. I think we have a pretty broad representation, and we had studies done. We did a master plan during my tenure on the board as well, and we did questionnaires. We did. They plotted where all the parks are, and it showed that we're not underserved. Any area almost within the city, you can walk to a park. So I think we've got a broad sample and representation for folks to participate in parks and other activities. So I think now the charge is, let's work on renovating, upgrading what we have, because we have a lot of parks with playground equipment that really need some TLC. For a long time have been given short shrift, and now's the time where we have a capital budget that we've let, and that's one of the big things, and that was kind of one of the findings with the master plan too, is let's work on upgrading, not expanding the pie overall. I mean, we can't, if folks come to us and feel like, here's a new opportunity, there's a lot of growing sports, lacrosse or pickleball, or we're happy to listen, and maybe we need to tweak and recalibrate. But overall, I think kind of the thought process of myself and the current board has been, let's work on some of the aesthetics and get things, you know, where people can walk into the facility and be like, wow, this is awesome, you know, and not that, you know, we have all this, but let's try to, you know, let's hide this a little bit and put some paint over this and hope that it's, you know, now's the time. Let's really get in there and do the things that we need to do to make it last for 20 more years and make it beautiful. So I think, to me, that's where I want to go with it. That's my vision, that I think we need to work on, you know, beautifying and renovating and revitalizing the things that we currently have, with an ear for new opportunities if they make sense that are brought to us.
So that, using that philosophy, I'll let you say that. Sure. How would you think about subdivisions? Is there may develop kind of smaller parks within subdivisions?
And that's, you know, and that's the dance, because I believe, you know, those, and I have a lot of folks who talk to me about those, that they want that little parcel, you know, they want to turn it over to the park district, and it's a quality of life issue that, and I agree with. But I know that there's been, in the past, we've kind of taken on a lot of those, and then now we have to, you know, we have to get staff to go out and mow, and so as you keep doing that, that becomes, you know, another thing that we have to stay on top of. So it's not something that I'm closed off to, but I think we have to be very judicious in those. I think the current kind of will of the board and myself, I'm in line with it, is, you know, let's try to work with maybe some of the HOAs and have them see if we could, you know, maybe perhaps we can have them consult with staff and say this is what they should maybe consider doing or helping them, but having full ownership really stretches finite resources for the department. So that's kind of my viewpoint on it. Not closed off to it, but had to be very judicious.
Being more partner-like with the HOA.
Right. And I think the district currently does a tremendous amount with partnerships, and I think that's where you see it going even across the nation, across the state, because all budgets, you know, for public entities are strapped. So, you know, partnerships are a great thing. You know, you can help where we can, but, you know, a lot of the passion comes from groups that have that vested interest in whatever activity it may be, and when you can take that and synergize it with, you know, the professional expertise that you have at a park district, good things happen with that. So that's where my mind is on an issue like that.
Okay. You mentioned master plan. I was on the website. I noticed the zoo has its own master plan. Was approved in December 2011. How would you rate the progress made in that plan, and are you happy with the changes you're seeing at the zoo? Yeah,
I think yes and no. I think we've done some things with penguin exhibits and that sort of thing, which are great. You know, it really gets the community excited. And I'm a fan of the zoo, but I think it needs, like I said, some more TLC. But with those things, none of those things are cheap, and so that's the the juxtaposition of the issues on yes, should we put more resources out there? Absolutely, but you also got to make sure that you're cognizant of the other pieces of the pie and those things you got to handle too. So I think we're moving in the right direction with it, but we've got some work ahead of us. But we've got good folks, you know, at the district, and you know, a zoological society that's invested and has a passion for it. And I think you put those things together, and really good things happen. So that's kind of I would like to see more, and I think we'll get there.
Okay. Well, last week the Park District has been in the news because of the staff recommendation of closing the preschool program in Washington Park. I guess talk to us about your thoughts on the program and how, I guess, where, I don't think you voted on it yet.
Right, no.
So I guess just what you're thinking of as you're discussing this as a board member.
Thank you. So kind of the procedural part of it is staff is going to make that recommendation in the upcoming budget next month, and then we vote in April on the budget, and we can make changes, and so that's kind of where we're in that period, fact finding and discussion stage right now. So preschool, it's obviously so my wife is a preschool consultant with the State Board of Education, so we have a lot of dinner table talk on the issue, and I think it's a very important thing, and obviously my wife and family were passionate about it. Me personally, I'm trying to find additional information, make sure I have all the resources and the information on it. I mean, the facts are that, as I'm told, we have 60 to 70 students that are there's a subsidy of about $1,000 per student. So you're looking at a district subsidy of $60,000 to $70,000. I think there's potential benefit to having the program, but what we need to consider and we need to discuss is finding ways to lower the subsidy. And I think based upon communication that I've received from parents and other interested stakeholders is that there's a willingness to talk about, maybe our rates are, too low or could be increased somewhat. You could do fundraising. I know they had some concerns about the level of marketing that was put into it as well. So I think those are all things that we need to have a dialogue about. I'm not wed either way at this point. I'm trying to gather the facts, and I think if we can find some way to reduce that subsidy from the 60 to 70K, and it sounds like there's some willingness there on the folks that are in the program. I think there's room to to maybe work towards seeing what could happen. But I think those discussions need to happen, and I think are ongoing and will happen.
Okay. So. Another program that has been talked about lately is a bike share program. The park district's looking at doing it, so is the city and UIS, and you're all looking at the same vendor of doing this. Do you support such a program?
Yeah, I'm supportive of it. I think some folks feel that maybe it's you go to other places and it's scooters instead of bikes. So I think maybe some folks would like to just skip, but that are other issues. So I think it's a great step, and I'm all for. We live right off of Sangamon Valley Trail. You can hop on it from my subdivision. The boys get out and mess around and have fun with that. So I think I'm all in favor of that. So
just going back to finances for a minute here. The city has a number of TIF districts, which of course are used to provide incentives for economic development, but the flip side is tax entities like a park district that receive property taxes will not for a while receive the funds they could otherwise receive. The park district recently, or in the last year, spoke out against one of the newest TIF districts, the Lumber Lane one. I guess, what do you think of the use of TIF districts by the city?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some benefit if used judiciously and appropriately. I think we have to be careful or cognizant of that we don't have too many. I think because obviously you are strapping the governmental bodies on what they're going to be able to. It's going to shrink the pie a little bit, but I think as a whole, the park district is willing to be, a good steward and participate where we think that there's, really a need, and it'll be used in a smart, judicious fashion. But I think we had the one that you referenced.
Yeah.
We kind of helped narrow the scope. I think there was some concerns with it, and ultimately I think it came to a better package. And so right, yeah. So I think it's one of those things where it starts and with dialogue, I think good open dialogue, things happen, it becomes tighter. I think there's some of that with TIF that probably needs to happen, that while there's definitely a benefit and a value to it, we just need to make sure that we're judicious in how they're structured and ultimately on how those funds are used. And I think sometimes there's questionable on how things are dispersed, but everybody has their own opinion and on how it should be used. But that's kind of my 2 cents on it. That just be careful, be focused, be judicious on the setup and the allocation of it.
What's your sense, CJ, about how safe and kind of how safe the district's parks and facilities are for people.
Yeah, I think when we talked about the police force, I think they've done a really good job making sure that they're responsive. We have the intergovernmental agreements we just did. We got Chatham, we got Southern View, we did Leland Grove, so we've been working on those as well to ensure that folks feel safe in the park, and if there is some unfortunate event, that we're responsive. And I think that we've come a long way, and at least hopefully people feel that we've got a professional organization that's there if and when they're needed, and they're active. And I haven't heard concerns from folks on that. And I'm accessible. I'd be happy to hear them, or if there's things they think we need to do differently. But I think we're in a good spot right now on the security issues throughout our facilities. And we could always do. I've heard some. I had a meeting a couple weeks ago on a couple parks, and it was news to me, but it was from some issues that happened a couple years ago. But we've, like I said, I think we've come a long way with Chief Nargelinas, and I had told him if some of those are still out there, let me know, and we'll work on getting them addressed. And anybody who sees or hears this or sees me out and about, let me know, and we're happy to work towards addressing them.
Okay. Do you think vehicles should be allowed to drive through Washington Park? I live near the park. My neighbors talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, and we have Don Evans, who's on the board now. I think you don't mean kind of in general. You mean as a pass through to get to.
Yeah, I mean, there are days the park has been closed off for
right.
like the hiking and biking.
Right.
Days,
exactly.
And
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, and people like that. Yeah, I think that's I think that was actually one of. I think Grant Hammer is one of his big initiatives. Has been super successful, and I think people really like that. I mean, with anything, if you, I can see the benefits both ways. I mean, but you've got folks who live, some of the areas. You're going to get 50-50 on that. I mean, I'm really not for changing anything from where it is right now. I don't see a need to change any of those. If there's a persuasive argument out there for it, I'm happy to hear it. But I think for the most part, the majority of folks are kind of happy with the dynamics as they are right now. But I'm open ears.
All right. Well, we thank you for meeting with us today, and we invite you to give a closing statement as to why voters should choose you on Election Day.
Sure. No, you bet. Thank you for having me today. I think that, as I've kind of spoke to previously, I think the last 4 years have been really good for the district from a fiscal financial perspective, where we've worked on increasing our fiscal year-end balances by close to $5 million. We've done a master plan. We've done numerous. Our bond rating has increased, while all at the same time providing programs, a vast array of 400 plus programs, working towards renovating facilities. So I think we're in a really good spot with the district. It's been a labor of love. I would hope that I'm given the honor to continue that. I think we've also, I didn't mention it previously, but worked on technological advances with the district. When I first started, I know we couldn't transfer a call from one facility to the other. So if you called the zoo and you wanted to get somebody at Southwind, we had to give you the number, and you had to call yourself. So now we can transfer, which sounds crazy that we weren't able to do that before, but we can do that. We're doing tracking software that people can actually sign up for programs online, which seems like a concept that should have been done previously, but we're getting that online. We're doing that, and I'd like to see those advances come to fruition and do more. And so I hope that people kind of know about those things and appreciate them, and that I'm given another 4 years to do similar things. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.